A while back I talked about Pillars of Eternity, and I said that this would probably give me the incentive to actually complete Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, because I'd played it a bit before, but simulating the world choices, which I will get onto in a moment, and sort of not really knowing how to play a Pillars game properly, because I'd not really played much of like the Baldur's Gate, like the Infinity Engine style games either at that point. So I found it a struggle. I found it very hard. I was underleveled and I couldn't find a thing that I could do at my level that wasn't just wiping me out. I didn't understand the AI systems. I didn't understand how to properly make a good party. I'd used the Critical Role pack, and I'll get onto that much later, so I didn't really have the companions around either, which might have helped with that novelty of it, the fact that I didn't know what I was doing. But finally I did get through it, and it's a very different beast, I think, to its predecessor. There's a few tweaks that are great, there's a few that are less good, but for the most part I enjoyed it, and I expect that really from Obsidian. Their heritage is so great that I don't think I need to tell anyone, but I think one of their greatest achievements that most people can agree on is the fact that they've created one of the most loved modern Fallout games in Fallout New Vegas. The fact that it gave the idea that your choices matter, like Obsidian are good at. And it's no surprise that a lot of those same people did work on both titles. But this was one of those where, like I say, importing the world state gave me a lot more connection to what had come before. Knowing when it comes up with a thing, because you can turn it on or off, and I like to turn it on, so it's like, oh yeah, that's the thing I did, I remember. And actually having gone through it rather than simulated it did give me that greater tie. You can sort of import your character, but it's more a recreation. I think that's generally the better way to do it, because in the first one you literally had specific classes. You couldn't multi-class, whereas they did introduce that in Pillars 2. And I couldn't really create a cleric. I could create a priest, but there's not really much good combatability. You can't really last in any kind of stand-up fight. It's not going to happen. But if you multi-class a priest and a fighter, you get what they even call in the game a cleric. The fact that it's someone who can turn undead, you can heal your allies, but you can also smack them about with your choice of weapon if you so desire. And that really helped in this game. I did find that I was a bit too spongy in the last one. But I've recreated the character, because it's a character I've always loved, like the concept of, and I didn't want to cheat out and do something that was close enough. I did want to make sure that I kept it as close as I could in the system. But I did enjoy it, but I did feel that there was a lot of travelling time in the game. In the first one, you're on the map and you pretty much instantaneously transfer between occasionally having random encounters on the way and having to unlock certain areas to get to other ones. You have to sort of pass through. But you didn't spend time doing that. You didn't really see it sort of take a long time. Whereas the sailing between the islands in this game does make up a sizable chunk, more than can be just ignored. Whilst it's fun to listen to the sea shanties that your crew are singing, it's not a substitute for actually being able to play the game. The management was different as well. Obviously in the first one you had to manage your home, Cadnur, and you build up sort of additional upgrades for it and extra features so that when you rest there you get bonuses, etc. In this one you're just upgrading your ship so that it can basically pass through to the endgame area. That's pretty much what you're doing. But you have a crew who have morale needs, they have drink needs, and they have food needs. Certain foods, like hardtack, are not very fun to eat in the real world either, and so that lowers your crew morale. Water is pretty boring, that lowers your crew morale. But if you give them grog, not strongjaw, again, we'll get into the critical role stuff later, but if you give them stuff like rum and ale to drink, their morale goes up. If you give them fruit, so they don't get scurvy, their morale goes up. And that makes a lot of sense, but you can get into a position, particularly early on, where you might be struggling for cash to afford to actually buy some decent food, and maybe you haven't sourced out much of the islands yet to get sources of fruit and things like that from there, that you could have a mutiny on your hands. And that feels very unfair. It's realistic, granted, but it feels like it's just extra stuff tacked on to make it seem like it's worth its money a bit more. In the first one, I really enjoyed going through all the companion quests. I really enjoyed doing the DLC stuff, the White March. I enjoyed all of that. I lapped it all up. And okay, maybe the fact that I was like, I am going to import some of these choices down the line, so I want to get the most out of it so that that world state is as good as I can make it. But in this one, there's a lot of little fetch quests and things where you're running between islands, and a lot of the different factions will send you to the same place. And when you start to see through some of that facade where they've just literally streamlined it to a bunch of small hub areas and occasional little bounty quests, those are the things that will take you the furthest afield, the bounty quests and the map sort of charting the different islands, which is fun. You can name islands. I named the last 3 after my character and the 2 cats I own. That's fun, granted. But like I say, that's really a fetch quest. You're going to a place to collect a thing or to name an island, and going back to the guy who gave you the quest to get your reward. It's a fetch quest. Obsidian are better than this. I know they're better than this because there wasn't too much of that, or it didn't feel like there was too much of that in the first one, I don't remember. Fetch quests are the bane of RPGs, particularly MMOs. But here, it just highlighted the flaws. I didn't feel compelled to do all the companion quests, even though I had all the Critical Role people in. I didn't feel compelled to swap them out to do those quests. I didn't feel compelled to really do the DLC. I muddled through as best I could to get to the end point and beat Aethys, and that's it, done. So I don't really question why it didn't receive the praise that its predecessor did. Now, I do have a bit of hope because there is a first-person RPG called Avowed that's set in the same universe coming at some point down the line. If I found out, it'll probably be displayed somewhere on screen now when it's expected, if at all, given what's happened over the last year. But I'm very hopeful that they can pick up some of the threads that were really good in the first one, some of the tweaks of the second one, and obviously changing the style, and really make something good, as long as they can do what they did with Grounded and give us a way to not have spiders all over the place. Please, Obsidian, please put an arachnophobe mode in. I'd very much appreciate it. But to finish off, I do want to quickly say, yes, I did use the Critical Role free DLC that gives you portraits, that gives you voices. Technically, you could give those portraits and voices to anything, but there is a great Reddit thread that gives class and race ideas to make it work. They do say Vex and Vax as pale elves, which doesn't work because you can't have dark hair, but if you put hoods on or hats, you can kind of bluff it. But it was really fun to have these characters. If you've watched the first campaign all the way through, like some people who have far too much time on their hands, clearly, it's really nice to revisit that and to have all these voices. It was interesting to see what they were going to do with Matt, because I suppose Gilmore is one of the better characters, that he can just be smooth and suave, and it really works within the game. And I had a lot more fun with those at my side, even though there wasn't the relationship mechanics and things like that. I couldn't go on companion quests for them. It didn't detract from it, and I think that really says, like I've said before, about how this game is just a bunch of quests linked together and a critical path that, you know, you'll probably touch on some of the side quests, and you do really kind of need to grind a bit to get through the critical path, especially if you're using content scaling. But it was fun. I got my money's worth, and I had a blast with some characters I haven't heard from for quite a while now. I can't really say much more than that. So if you've not played either of them, go and pick them both up and have some fun in the world, and get prepped for Avowed. Hopefully that will be the saving grace to the world of Eora that we need right now. But I'll be back next time with another game, because I like to theme things together. So hope you'll join me then, but until then, as always, thank you for watching, and take care.